And this, it's not an Emrakul deck on Skarren's side, but it's very close. This whole graveyard deck versus Bant deck, I'd say, is really the tension point of the format. And I'd expect to see a lot of it this weekend.
Definitely. And Tumavitch only has 3 Selfless Spirits. That's among their most important cards in this matchup to give you some play against Kozilek's Return.
Yeah, Tumavitch starts out with Evolving Wilds. Yeah, the biggest thing that Skarren, correct me here, is what he's going to try to set up is when he's going to try to mill a Kozilek's Return, or even just cast it and kill nothing, and then get an Elder Deep Fiend in his hand, and then wait.
Yep.
Because at that point, he has an instant speed sweeper that taps out Tumavitch.
Right, exactly. Theoretically, you can pull ahead with a bunch of Haunted Deads and Prized Amalgams, but mostly it's that sweeper element that's really going to give him any kind of advantage in this matchup.
Players trading some lands to start. It was Tumavitch on the play, and fortunately for Skarren, Tumavitch did not start on anything like a Duskwatch Recruiter or Sylvan Advocate. He took the first 2 turns off to develop his mana. Looks like it actually will be Skarren with the first play of the game. We're going to see Grapple with the Past. Now he's doing that main phase because he's respecting off Island Evolving Wilds. He already is respecting a card like Spellqueller.
Yep, you don't want to get countered there. And interestingly, with the Grapple on turn 2, there's no guarantee of a hit. Your odds are pretty good, but he was only able to pick up Prized Amalgam there.
Yeah, it's interesting. He actually didn't have to put Prized Amalgam in his hand, but he chose to. More importantly, he put Kozilek's Return in his graveyard.
Yes. That was much more significant.
Duskwatch Recruiter's the play from Tumavitch. It's a turn late as he had to go get the green source tapped off Evolving Wilds. And for Skarren, now he'll play his 2-drop creature, a copy of Jace Vryn's Prodigy. 3 cards already in the graveyard for Skarren. This could flip very soon.
Yeah, won't take too long.
Swing from Duskwatch Recruiter. There is a copy of Dromoka's Command in Tumavitch's hand, but he's just going to pass with, of course, the Telltale 4 mana up, and now the flip on Duskwatch Recruiter.
And even though Skarren does have the 4 Evolving Wilds, the Grapples, the Traverses, there's actually no red-producing land in his deck.
So he actually just cannot cast these Kozilek's Returns.
Yep, so actually flipping it over to the Grapple and/or having this Jace survive to maybe discard a second copy, very important for this style of deck.
Yeah, he can also Haunted Dead them into the yard, I believe.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get it there, but casting it is not one of them.
Frank will play his 4th land. Now, normally when you see 4 mana up for Bant Company, you're expecting Collected Company, but there's a second option from Tumavitch, and we're going to see it right here. It's an end-step Archangel Avacyn.
Yep, the flipped Duskwatch Recruiter makes this a little cheaper, get a discount to Avacyn, and now there's a lot of pressure on Skarren to start doing a lot more than just casting Jace.
Yeah. Tumavitch will untap. Swing for 7. You see 2 Prized Amalgams in Skarren's hand. It's gonna, with Jace, he'll loot. Looks like he draws into an Emerge creature. He's got to work his way there. He's going to discard that Haunted Dead, and this is where the deck starts doing cool things.
Yep, we already know he has at least 1 Prized Amalgam. He can discard that to the dead, put a lot of power on the table here.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to pay that 2 mana to discard 2 cards. I think he has 2 Prized Amalgams if he wants them. Discarding 1 Amalgam.
And the Haunted Dead does
2
enter
amalgams.
the battlefield.
Oof.
The Haunted Dead does come in tapped here. The
Spirit
Amalgams,
does not.
right. The Amalgams won't be here till the end of turn, though. The Spirit will be around to chump block here.
There's a lot of power here from Skarren. Maybe he's just going to try to race. Spirit's made. I think one of the cooler parts of this deck is that the Haunted Dead actually acts as Emerge fodder.
Yes.
Yeah. Spirit blocks Avacyn.
And if he's able to produce them, he can start casting some Elder Deep Fiends here, and it's not terribly difficult to actually win a race.
So does Tumavitch have to then Dromoka's Command down the Haunted Dead, something like that?
That wouldn't get him too far because the 2 Amalgams are already on their way back.
Right. Yeah, if we go to Tumavitch's end step, Skarren's bringing a bunch of zombies into play. Frank's down to 14, but you see it's going to untap with 8 power.
If Tumavitch had 2 copies of Dromoka's Command, he could get the Avacyn out of Kozilek's Return range. That might be something that could matter in a game like this.
Now keep in mind that Dromoka's Command It has a mode which prevents damage from an instant. That's not going to work against the flashbacked Kozilek's Return.
Yeah, so you're not actually casting the spell. It's just a trigger. There's a lot of really awkward interactions that come to that graveyard event. So when it's triggered there, one of the other interactions to keep in mind is against Selfless Spirit. There's no spirit in this game, but you have to sacrifice the Selfless Spirit before they say whether or not they are using the Kozilek's Return ability. Because if you just say it's okay, then your spirit and all its little friends will die. And if you sacrifice your spirit, then they can also just not do it.
Yeah, you don't really get to blow them out, right? You don't get to... You stop it from sweeping your team, but you don't get the Kozilek's Return exiled.
Yeah, you just sacrifice yourself a spirit because that's the only line that you actually have.
No plays from Tumavitch. We go back to Skarren here for turn number 5. He's at a healthy 14. That chump block saving him life points, and now he's going to swing back a pair of 3/3s and a 2/2. Now he's swinging into a 4/4.
Yep, but with sticky creatures, as they've come to be known, he's fine with these things dying over and over. There's a good chance that he's going to kill these creatures himself.
Tumavitch blocks the Haunted Dead. Takes 6, joins Skarren at 14.
And if he has any of his 4 Elder Deep Fiends or his Distended Mindbender, we're going to see them, I imagine, somewhere in this turn cycle.
So Skarren goes for a loot. Now, Tumavitch does not want this Planeswalker to flip, so in response to the trigger, he's going to Dromoka's Command and fight down the Jace. Putting a counter on the Howler and having Avacyn fight the Jace. So Frank will still get to draw and discard, as we see here, but the Jace will be in the graveyard, so no Planeswalker.
With the counter going on the Howler, it kind of makes sense to have another 4/4 against these 3/3s on Skarren's side of the table, but now Skarren doesn't have to be worried about a second Dromoka's Command putting the Avacyn out of Kozilek's Return range.
So what's the tell here? Tumavitch didn't main phase the Dromoka's Command. He did it at instant speed, and I think if you're Skarren, you've got to be suspicious of that. He's going to go ahead and emerge the Distended Mindbender.
Well, he'll be able to confirm any suspicions he had at this point in time.
Yeah, it's Spell Queller, Declaration in Stone, Sylvan Advocate. Oh, just the reason being that play there, by doing it there, Frank's got an extra loot. And especially when he has a card like Haunted Dead in his hand, that loot matters.
Mm-hmm. So here with the Flip Duskwatch Recruiter, he's able to cast the Spell Queller in addition to the Dromoka's Command. So he wasn't choosing between spells. He's choked on green mana, it looks like. But he can cast both of those with only 1 green mana.
So here's the Mindbender. Frank will get to take, it looks like just 1 card from Tumavitch's hand. They all cost 3 or fewer, but he takes the Declaration in Stone.
Yep. Sylvan Advocate solidly in 2/3 territory, likely for the foreseeable future, and the Spell Queller, well, Skarren's just got bigger stuff going on.
And yeah, love how this played. After Frank stacked his triggers so that after he saw Tumavitch's hand, then he decided whether or not he wanted to Kozilek's Return. His answer, yes, he sweeps away the creatures.
Mm-hmm. Good sequencing, not surprising.
Reflector Mage is the draw and the play for Tumavitch. He returns the Mindbender to Skarren's hand and passes. For Skarren, his graveyard is 2 prized amalgams, a Stitchwing Scob, and a Haunted Dead. He's got a lot of tools here.
The Stitchwing Scob serving as the 5th effect for the Haunted Dead. Generally worse. It can be a little bit better against Planeswalkers.
Yeah, it looks like just 1 Scob, as you were saying. Yeah, 4 Haunted Deads. With both players at 14, this game, this is shaping out the way that Skarren would like the game to be.
Yep, exactly.
Another Reflector Mage from Tumavitch. So Skarren on end step, has the ability to make 9 power here. Yes. Or rather on main phase and end step.
Right. Has that Haunted Dead and the 2 amalgams already back in the graveyard that Tumavitch knows about.
Right. And it all plays around Spell Queller because he's not casting any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sylvan Advocate from Tumavitch and a pass. Now Frank taps a black. There's 2. It's going to be one of his creatures. We'll see what he discards. Another Haunted Dead and a Yavimaya Coast. So he'll get back the first Haunted Dead. He gets the 2/2. Now this is during Tumavitch's main phase, so Tumavitch can cast another creature after this is done.
Right, you want to be able to do this main phase because Prized Amalgam would wait a full turn cycle if you waited until end step.
Yeah, the 2 amalgams are waiting. Does Tumavitch want to play something else now? He has nothing else to play. So Frank will untap.
Yeah, on just blue and white mana, it's hard for him to have a 2-mana play here. Declaration of Stone was already ripped from his hand.
Yeah, it would have to be, I think, a Selfless Spirit or a Jace.
Right. And with either of those cards, probably would have already played it.
Frank leaves back Haunted Dead, but attacks in for 7. Tumavitch now at 7. Frank winning the race.
Yeah, he already has the backup Haunted Dead in his graveyard. This one would just run into that Sylvan Advocate. No real reason to make that attack. Can save some of his life total by blocking with it anyway.
For 1 mana, it is Traverse the Ulfenwald for Frank. We see Enchantment. Yeah, that's going to be enough. A scoop here from Tumavitch. Now, the line I believe that was said here, which Tumavitch is going to scoop to, is Frank is going to find Elder Deepfiend. He's got double blue in play in that Haunted Dead. On Tumavitch's upkeep, he's going to emerge the Deepfiend out of the Haunted Dead, tap Tumavitch's blockers and some of his mana, then attack for 7.
Right. Skarren has already seen a hand without Collected Company. Tumavitch didn't cast it on that turn. If you get it in upkeep, keep him off the lands to actually cast a Collected Company. Just tap 1 land. The other creatures, I guess there's another land that he can tap on top of that. Can put Tumavitch just dead to rights.
All right, so game 1 goes to Frank, Skarren, and Sultai Emerge. Now, we talked last round about the Bengali Rye playmat. We have that one coming out with Kaladesh. This is the Kaladesh pre-release, so it's September 24th and 25th. Now, in the past, you would have to go to the Star City Games Game Center in Roanoke, Virginia to get one of our exclusive playmats, but that is not the case anymore. These are given out all around the country, so find a store near you. These will be this limited edition playmat will be available around the country, and you can find out where at starcitygames.com/pre-release.
Really excited to see more of this Kaladesh style art. It's got a really cool style guide.
It is really neat. It's like this steampunk meets Eastern feel. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah, everyone's eating fish, so you know that they're hip.
We're gonna look at the sideboards. We'll start with Matt Tumavitch. He's down a game with Bant Company. He's got 3 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, 2 Tragic Arrogance, 2 Clash of Wills, a Tireless Tracker, 2 Noose Constrictor, a Dromoka's Command, an Archangel Avacyn, 2 Summary Dismissal, and an Ojutai's Command.
So Tumavitch's role in this matchup, playing these mopey creatures and running in Kozilek's Return, not getting him anywhere. He's looking for a way to be a little more sticky on the table, so the Gideon Ally Zendikar helps this plan quite a lot. Summary Dismissal is also going to deal with a lot of the bigger plays from Skarren, so I imagine that one will come in as well. And Archangel Avacyn for really the same reasons as the others cards, just another way to kind of go big. I could see an argument for Clash of Wills, so it isn't really shine here.
It is interesting, right? We have to talk about the differences between different Emerge decks. Now, against a Teamer Emerge, you might see Matt go for an Ojutai's Command or these Clash of Wills.
Right.
Because I guess at the end of the day, that's a ramp deck. But we saw that game, Matt had a Spell Queller in his hand, and Frank just never cast any cards.
Yeah, he's not in the business of casting spells once he gets his graveyard set up with some Prized Amalgams and the Haunted Dead. He's just trying to get that to happen, and then he'll find a window where he can Elder Deepfiend. Elder Deepfiend does have Flash, so Tumavitch can't just not cast spells while Skarren is doing all this setup.
All right, on Frank's side, we have 2 Pulse of Marasa, 2 To the Slaughter, 2 Transgress the Mind, 2 Ultimate Price, 2 Collective Brutality, and then 5 one-ofs, a Languish, an Infinite Obliteration, a Nissa, Vastwood Seer, a Guiltleaf Winnower, and a Mountain.
I kind of like Languish here. It's a way to clean up some of these boards. That's a reasonable option, and also Skarren's deck is much more resilient than the company deck, even though both are fairly resilient, but the card is fine. And I generally like Transgress the Mind against Bant Company. They have a lot of 3+ things you can find, and are usually the most important card in their hand.
Yeah, Transgress typically is good against these Bant decks. Now, what I think is interesting is the Mountain you see in Frank's sideboard. Now, I don't believe he'll use it here.
Right, so that's just to give him some way to cast Kozilek's Return. That's going to be for the matchups where the front side really matters, specifically the white X-Humans decks.
Right, and his only way to find it is traverse the Ulfenwald. And I believe he's got
He has
4
Evolving Wilds.
Yeah, so
theoretically, he can grapple into it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, no way in his main deck to actually cast that on the front side.
Yep. And at 22 lands, just being able to hit his other 3 colors in his deck, generally going to matter more than that Mountain.
Well, that's the great part of these Emerge decks, right? We're talking about ramp decks that are on 22, 21, or 20 lands.
Yes. Yeah, this is a really kind of degenerate shell. This low land count and grapple traverse the Ulfenwald package. It's very powerful, and I think that a lot of players are underestimating it so far, and particularly because we still have this great Bant Company deck you can just pick up and play.
The Bant Company deck's great, to be fair. I know Tumavitch is down a game here.
Yeah.
Playing
So Collected Company is breaking some rules, right? It's getting you ahead on mana.
You're getting 6 mana worth of stuff for 4 mana, and you're getting it at instant speed.
Exactly, sorcery stuff at instant speed. So it can be easy to overlook how degenerate this Traverse package actually is.
Frank Skarren on a mulligan here. I think what I found is the more terrifying thing about the Bant Company deck is that when they have cards like Reflector Mage, which is a pretty universal answer to a creature, and Spell Queller, which is a pretty universal answer to a spell, when they on curve hit the right card for what you're doing, their deck feels really unbeatable.
Yes.
So, they play a 2-drop, you play a 2-drop, they Reflector Mage it, you play a 3-drop, they collect a company into a Reflector Mage and a Tyler's Tracker, and you just look at the board and you think, I don't know what I'm doing with myself right now. This is horrible. But then you're like, well, maybe I'll have to languish them. And then you keep the same hand. But we do the exact same thing, but instead of a Reflector Mage, they Spell Quell you, and then they Spell Quell your languish. You're like, this is stupid again.
Yeah, that's one of the strengths is that Spell Queller and Reflector Mage put a lot of pressure on opposite ends of the curve.
When they have the right one for what you're doing, it's just a beating.
Yes. And that's one of the strengths of the Sultai Emerge deck. It's not really casting a lot of spells, and it's not really paying a lot of mind to Reflector Mage.
Yeah, it can beat some of those draws. So Frank has kept on 6, the Scry's to the top. We start the game with Tumavitch. You see, keeping his face-down card on Evolving Wilds, this is a time-saving technique that some players use if the opponent agrees to it. He says, I'm going to get this land unless you do something that makes me change my mind.
And it's a minor thing, but every second can really count in a format like this. Again, this is one of the more complicated standards we've seen in some time.
Duskwatch Recruiter for Tumavitch. He chose that over the Sylvan Advocate in his hand, assuming he's not sure that Frank will actually play a spell.
Yeah, I could maybe flip it. The Sylvan Advocate's just going to be a 2/3. 2/2 is kind of the same as far as attacking. He doesn't have to do any blocking.
Frank with Llanowar Wastes does have a spell here, but he's going to pay a life point for it, so it looks like that'll be Transgress, or how about Collective Brutality? So that part where Duskwatch was the same card.
That's going to punish the Duskwatch over the Advocate for sure.
Now, Frank escalated this by discarding Haunted Dead. Did he hit a card with it? No, he did not.
It is certainly worth using this extra mode on Collective Brutality to look for a Collected Company, or even a Dromoka's Command is a fine hit.
So he chose the first 2 modes there. He gave -2/-2 to the Duskwatch Recruiter and had Tumavitch reveal his hand. Tumavitch's hand, by the way, lands 3/4 and a trio of creatures. Not too shabby. It's going to be now the Lumbering Falls for Tumavitch, and he has his choice of other 2-drops. He'll go for the Advocate.
And that other thing about using the second mode on Brutality is discarding the Haunted Dead kind of free. He really wants that in the graveyard anyway.
Yeah, if that traded, you would say what? It's maybe 60% he hits a card.
Yeah.
And he's trading Haunted Dead with 60% of a card. That's probably good.
And if it was a matchup where he didn't expect to find an instant or didn't really care, say he's playing against humans, he probably just would use the lose 2 life, gain 2 life ability. Though he could look over a Declaration in Stone in that matchup as well.
Yeah, Collective Brutality is one of those cards that I really like. I think as a community, players are starting to catch on to the fact that this card's really good.
Yes.
We saw some people playing in Abzan at the Invitational 2 weeks ago.
And in Modern, yeah.
Right. And I would expect to see more of that.
Yeah, so it does one thing for 2 mana that is at a rate that's probably better cost at 1 mana. It doesn't really feel like you're getting anywhere, but the fact,
disfigure.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that you can get 2 of those abilities for 2 total mana, that feels like a good rate.
So Tumavitch on his turn attacks for 2, plays Tireless Tracker, plays land 4, gets a clue. Before Frank untaps, he goes ahead and takes a pain off his Llanowar Wastes to ultimate price down the Tracker.
A Tracker is a card that can really get out of hand all on its own.
The danger point here is so Frank knows about the Selfless Spirit in Tumavitch's hand. What he doesn't know is that the last 2 draws Tumavitch has had were both copies of Spell Queller. Frank's going to pay 2 for Grapple with the Past. Finds Jace, Yavimaya Coast, and Gather the Pack. So we can get back the Haunted Dead the Yavimaya Coast or the Jace. Looks like he'll go with Jace.
Yep, Haunted Dead is right at home in the graveyard.
Yeah, it passes. His land, he has the land there, but it's Evolving Wilds, so can't cast Jace just yet.
A little unfortunate there, especially in the face of these spell quellers.
Matt will crack a clue to draw a card, draws his land, so now has those lands for the spell quellers. More importantly, he's building his way up towards Sylvan Advocate.
Yes.
Swing. Now, a play that Frank has, and something that Matt needs to watch out for. Frank has a copy of Kozilek's Return in his hand. So with that Haunted Dead in the graveyard, he can, out of nowhere, have a sweeper for Matt's board, which is spell queller proof.
Yes. That's really scary stuff.
Swing puts Frank down to 14. So if you're on Tumavitch's side, at what point then do you think we see him run out that Selfless Spirit just in case?
So right now, he's still representing just Spell Queller.
Right.
As soon as next turn, I think he's just going to cast it.
And he probably Spell Quells on the end step here, even if Frank plays nothing. Just because he has a second one. He is in the business for attacking here.
And once he has the Spell Queller on the battlefield, the Selfless Spirit is much more important to cast. So as soon as that hits the table, either proactively or reactively, the Selfless Spirit is sure to follow.
So this is all on Matt's end step. Frank's about to untap. He's going to go for it. He does have the Jace that both players know about. Draws Forest for the turn. So he has his 5th land. He's got a Kozilek's Return in hand. He can discard that if he needs to. He's got a Jace. He's got at least one more card here. Might just be Haunted Dead fodder.
And Frank's seen a Spell Queller before, choosing not to play into that.
I also like here, Frank, choosing not to play his land. He just passes the turn.
Got to discard something to Haunted Dead.
Yeah. Evolving Wilds for Tumavitch. Importantly, that is land 6. So, Sylvan Advocate now a 4/5. Matt will crack the Evolving Wilds. We'll see how he wants to play this. He's got a Selfless Spirit, a Spell Queller in hand, and enough mana to play both. At the same time, he's got this Lumbering Falls in play and a Sylvan Advocate going on. He could just try to beat Frank up.
So actually, this Evolving Wilds marks the 2nd white mana source for him, so he can't Spirit and Queller on this turn.
He has to pick. Okay.
Yeah. So probably just hanging on to the 2nd Queller.
Well, he's no attack for 6. I'm going to throw that back at you. If you're playing around Kozilek's Return, isn't it better actually just to play the Spirit?
Specifically Kozilek's Return, yeah. And Skarren is light enough on resources that he probably doesn't have 2 ways to trigger the Kozilek's Return. But Tumavitch will have enough stuff to reset after the return the way he's playing it.
So Frank, in attacks here, brings back Haunted Dead, puts the Spirit token in front of the Advocate, goes to 12. Frank discarded his Kozilek's Return to do this, so now Matt gets to play with some better information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he sees it's waiting in the yard. There's a 4-drop in play. Frank could emerge off of this. I think Selfless Spirit is where he's going to go.
Especially, yeah, given that he has the Lumbering Falls and the active Advocate that does attack for 5 in the face of a Distended Mindbender.
Right, and here it is. Selfless Spirit doesn't want any sort of Elder Deep Fiend or Distended Mindbender sweeping his board.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to Frank Skarren. Keep in mind, Frank skipped his land drop last turn, intentionally.
And he's in some trouble here. He definitely has to start having these large Eldrazi.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure against Bant Company to Kozilek's Return early and often in these matchups.
Mm-hmm.
So the first play from Frank is a Jace. This takes the Emerge off the board, as he also doesn't play a land.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Tumavitch. Draws Duskwatch Recruiter. That's going to be pretty good with these lands.
Yes.
If somehow his board gets swept, he's got some good regress from it.
For now, I kind of like firing up the Lumbering Falls and getting aggressive. He doesn't really need to add to this board.
Well, he'll get aggressive. Not as aggressive as Lumbering Falls, but all the creatures will attack. This is a swing for 8.
He has a 7th land in hand. Once he gets to his 8th land, he's able to cast Recruiter and recruit twice. I suppose, given that the Spirit's already on the table, it's kind of a free roll. You know that you can't get Kozilek's Return to this turn.
Frank down to 8. For Tumavitch, here's Duskwatch Recruiter. At some point here, Frank's going to be low enough that even if he sweeps the board, Matt can end step, flash in, spell queller, activate Lumbering Falls. You know, you can just kill him through it.
Yeah, now Skarren needs a 5th land if he's even going to cast an emerge creature here to sacrifice the Jace.
Yeah, he's going to discard the remainder of his hand to get Haunted Dead back again. So it looks like he didn't have the emerge creature.
And the Haunted Dead will do for fodder too, but he has to peel here. The Jace will help the matter a little bit, but the Selfless Spirit might already be too much.
Yeah, I mean, if Frank's going to get this, it's going to start with an Eldrazi. That's not enough to end it, but that's the first play.
Yeah, he really needs to find a second Kozilek's Return and 2 Eldrazi.
And this is where I really like the Bant Company deck. So say Frank does pull this off, right? He finds the Eldrazi. What Matt can do is sacrifice the Selfless Spirit, and then he uses the Duskwatch Recruiter, which is still alive, it's indestructible, to go find another Selfless Spirit. And if he does, he just plays it and says, well, that was great, you're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, at this point, Skarren might even be clutching on Tumavitch, possibly not understanding that return spirit interaction realistically. He's very far behind.
Yeah, Jace will flip into a Planeswalker. It'll give flashback to a card in Frank's graveyard. Let's see what we have. He's got to gather the pack. I'm going to grapple. He's going to go for gather the pack.
This looks like a good enough window for a Spell Queller to me.
Yeah, Spell Queller will take care of that. Absolutely. Doesn't want Frank finding an Eldrazi off of that.
And I believe by animating the Lumbering Falls, Tumavitch will have a lethal attack here. 2 blockers for Skarren. He only has 1 card in hand, so he can't bring back the other Haunted Dead. So you can jump in front of those 2 large creatures and the Flyers have lethal. Or how about a Declaration in Stone?
Yeah, just to make sure this happens, he's going to Declaration away the Haunted Dead, activate the Lumbering Falls, and that'll take the game and evened up at 1 apiece between Tumavitch and Skarren. Bant doing Bant things.
Skarren on the mulligan there, but just the Bant Company deck really just looked impressive there. It did what Bant Company does. Didn't even draw a Collected Company, just had the creatures line up the way that they needed to. And actually, if he drew Collected Company, his hand might have been worse because he would have got hit by that Collected Brutality.
Well, what I like about Bant is that, so you look at this Sultai Emerge deck and you say, okay, what's Frank's game plan? It's about Kozilek's Return. Mill 1, flash it back, do that again, then win with what's left over. What the Bant's deck's trying to do here is that he's going to try to make enough pressure so that Frank has to do it quickly.
Yep.
And so it takes, like, if Matt has a Selfless Spirit, or you talked about the counter spell on his board, the Dismissal, he wants to have enough pressure that Frank can't play around those things. He kind of just has to crash into them and hope for the best.
Right. And Skarren, with that discard on the Brutality and having the multiple Haunted Deads, he kind of ran out of cards in hand. And you really need to be able to keep up on that sort of thing with this deck. With some other draws, say he has a second Kozilek's Return and the 2 Eldrazi, given that curve from Tumavitch, he was still under possibly too much pressure to really have a good window for that.
Well, they're going to have a third deciding game here. Now, just over a month away is Grand Prix Atlanta. We talked about this is the last standard event before Kaladesh comes out. Once Kaladesh comes out, you're going to need the new cards, and there's no better way to do it than at Grand Prix Atlanta. This is October 7th through 9th. It's going to be Kaladesh Limited, so your chance to crack all of the new cards and then come battle them. This is run by StarCityGames.com right now. So registration is open, and you're going to want to register, because if you do it in the next week, we are still giving away the exclusive playmat for the event. This is, you have to by this coming Friday, September 9th. This is our new playmat for the event, as you see here, kind of the Kaladesh themed playmat.
Yeah, this is the art of downtown Atlanta. It looks exactly like that, especially in October.
So you could, yeah, Liliana's going to be there, Chandra's going to be there. They're going to be looking at the Grand Prix, as you can see here. So you're going to want to be, you're going to want to head over there. This is October 7th through 9th, and registration is now open, so head on over to starcitygames.com/GPAtlanta and sign up today.
If you make down to Atlanta, don't be too concerned about the Thopters. They're just part of life. We have mosquitoes in Minnesota. They
Nope.
have
They have
robotic.
Thopters.
They have robotic drones in Georgia.
Do you get stung by Thopters? You know, you need like Thopter repellent.
They're a little large to consider it being stung. It's really more of an impaled.
Okay, well then I definitely want Thopter repellent.
Yes, strongly recommended. You can find it at the online Star City Games shop.
It kind of gives you a smell of axle grease, I would imagine.
That's how you attract
That's how you
Thopters.
attract
Yeah,
them?
that's for Thopter hunting season.
Okay. Going to game 3 here, Tumavitch and Skarren. So Bant Company versus Sultai emerge. For the company deck, the namesake card hasn't shown up, but as you saw in game 2, it wasn't really a problem. No collected company, but just an aggressive enough draw of creatures. One of the things I like about the Bant Company deck, you think about the draw that Matt had last game there, all those cards going to still be legal after rotation. You see Duskwatch Recruiter, Sylvan Advocate, Reflector Mage, Spell Queller.
We're losing Reflector Mage.
No,
Never
I think
mind.
No, we get to keep him around.
Why
He's
do-
from Oath of the Gatewatch.
I always think this card's in Magic Organs. You're right.
Yeah, we get to. I mean, yeah, he loses the collected company, but
I
there's
am-
still a deck here.
I am so much less excited about rotation. I don't know.
They're not companying into it, and that might matter. Let's just be up front.
I've cast that card for 3 mana plenty of times. It's still pretty filthy.
It's still going to be on. People are still going to register the card even without collected company. That's. Game 3, Skarren on the play starts with Traverse the Ulfenwald for a island. For Tumavitch, he goes and gets a Plains. Island will set up a turn 2 Jace for Skarren. And that's going to be the play. A lot of interesting questions, I guess, as whether or not these decks will exist after rotation. Bant Company has been, I would say, the top dog of the format, almost runner to runner here.
Yeah. Losing Collected Company and Dramoka's Command are significant.
Yeah, the spells are really, it's losing the spells but keeping the creatures. I guess it loses Nissa, but it keeps Tireless Tracker, it keeps Avacyn, it keeps most of the creatures in the deck. We lose Jace.
Right. We've already seen some builds that are just main decking for Tamiyo Field Researcher. That could just be a really easy transition as well.
For Frank, he's going to cast Grapple with the Past, doing that main phase here so that he can flip the Jace, gets a land, and more importantly, mills a Kozilek's Return. Now Jace loots, he gets a turn 3 Planeswalker. He's got some prized amalgams to discard. This is more Frank's style as opposed to last game.
Absolutely, and this Sultai Emerge deck is very redundant in the pieces that it has. 4 Kozilek's Return, 4 Prize Amalgam, 4 Haunted Dead. So that was an above average grapple, but it will only take maybe one more of these mill spells to kind of get there on average the way this deck is actually built.
Yeah, you don't have to. One thing I like is that he's not counting Delirium nearly as hard as the teamer decks. He's just getting some value. You see Jace ticks up to make Advocate a 0/3. But he's already got his Amalgam, his Kozilek's Return. There's tools in the graveyard. He's sitting pretty nice here. Advocate will swing for 0. Frank, that's fine. And then Matt passes. Matt with some instant speed game here. Got both Collected Company and Summary Dismissal in his hand.
Still on 3 mana, so what he wants to have here is a Spell Queller. But both of those cards could play very well here.
We're back to Frank, turn 4. Has another Amalgam in hand. Looks like he has a black spell, another Jace, some lands.
And Skarren almost wishes he still had unflipped Jace here, so we could just continue looting, try to find a Haunted Dead just to get on the table that way.
Well, it's interesting. He would have had that option last turn. He could have looted with a Jace and then grappled if that was his priority.
That way he would lose his Jace to the Advocate, which is somewhat awkward.
Well,
you're right.
possibly, yeah.
I was in the wrong. Yeah, you're right. You
well,
could just
if there's a
loot and
Dramoka's
then
Command, he
activate
would.
it. Right.
He's going to play another Jace. Unclear if Matt's kept any Dramoka's Commands in. They don't do
This is
too
not
much.
the best matchup for them. Not a lot of creatures that it makes a lot of sense to be picking fights with, and no enchantments that you need to deal with.
So Jace from Frank pluses the Planeswalker to a 7. Looks like he plays another Sunken Hollow, but it's tapped. Only has that one basic in play. And now he's going to pass, and this is a play for Tumavitch, and it looks like he'll just do nothing. Goes ahead and draws. Draw was Reflector Mage.
Given that Tumavitch didn't have that Spell Queller, this hand's lining up a little bit awkward now.
Well, he's just not presenting any pressure.
Right.
He plays another Prairie Stream, so now he has his 4-mana instance up. But it feels like he just has to cast his Collected Company end step here. And if Frank has something like a counter spell, well, that'll stink.
Yeah, it's kind of unlikely that you'll see that out of this Sultai Emerge deck. They don't really do a lot of countering spells.
Yeah, they're more about discard, if anything.
Right. Though he's crunching on this being a good Collected Company. That's one thing about Collected Company that has really made it one of the more maligned cards, is that it's very high variance, actually. You can find 2 Reflector Mage, you can find Reflector Mage Spell Queller, or my personal favorite, 0 anythings whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, the good companies are real good.
Yes.
The range is very wide. Grapple main phase from Skarren. You'll mill a Swamp. We have 2 other cards. Looks like 2 other lands. Deciding what he's going to get back here. He'll go for, Yav Coast. There's an Evolving Wilds off the top there. That's what he's going to put in his hand. So the idea of evolving, why Evolving Wilds instead of a Swamp, maybe?
It's possible that he's trying to get just some, like a forest onto the battlefield. He has the Yavimaya Coast as an option, but it's not a pain-free green source.
Yeah, it also means it would be a second basic, so then he turns on his battle lands.
Yeah.
Here's Collective Brutality from Skarren. Can't kill the Advocate, but can do some... We'll see how much he wants to emerge for it. He's going to discard that Evolving Wilds he got back. I guess it didn't really matter which land he selected.
Yeah, just picked up a card, apparently.
So he's going to escalate it. I imagine he's doing the 2 life and the reveal hand modes. I don't think he's killing the Advocate.
Right. And so Tumavitch has an interesting choice here. He can either collect a company to find some creatures or just dismissal the spell.
He's going to collect a company. Jace, Nissa, Recruiter, land, dismissal, land. So he hits 2 creatures. He's got a choice going as well.
So this is fine, but I actually think I'd be inclined to just cast the dismissal on this spell, because this way you lose the dismissal, the company's spent, and now you're kind of worried about Kozilek's return.
Well, maybe. He can flash back with enough plays. I guess if his graveyard was more full, he could flash back the company and hope to hit a Selfless Spirit, and then this doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. He chose Nissa and Jace, so both of the Planeswalkers.
Skarren seeing your hand here is also significant.
Yeah, Summary Dismissal's gone. Now Frank knows that the potential to flash back that Kozilek's return, or the flashback style effect, is good.
Yep. Also just has better information. He sees the Reflector Mage face up, looking for any Spell Quellers that could be in the hand. He'll have the green light on that.
I guess if Tumavitch has an Evolving Wilds in hand, he can cast another company main phase here. Frank is now going to minus the Jace to traverse the Oafen and cast it. Got instant land. It does not have Delirium here. We'll check. Perhaps he's got instant land, creature. We'll double check on if he has Delirium.
I believe he has instant land, creature, sorcery. He has the Brutality.
Oh,
there's
the Brutality's there. Yeah.
There's an Amalgam hanging out.
Yeah, there's a Prized Amalgam. So it's Kozilek's Return, Prized Amalgam, Swamp, and Collective Brutality. Yeah, he has all 4. You see, now he's going to get Elder Deep Fiend. He's got that. We talked about how setting up Deep Fiend plus Kozilek's Return was the game plan for his deck.
Mm-hmm. And just the seeing the hand effect off of the Brutality lets him know, unless Tumavitch drew it right now or draws it with this Jace, this should be pretty substantial.
Yeah, I was saying with the counter versus company play, if Tumavitch has Evolving Wilds in hand, I like how he played this. Right, Evolving Wilds crack, Jace flipped card 5, flashback Collected Company. If we hit, then we have 12 cards to see a Selfless Spirit and not care. But that's not what's going to play out. Jace is going to tap and discard a Fortified Village.
And with that play as well, it's a higher risk play. The reward is obvious.
Right.
But you need to find that spirit. And Tumavitch, he is on the 3-spirit list.
Yeah, and you see Tumavitch will attack down the Jace, but this is the situation that Bant doesn't want to be in, where Frank just has a Elder Deep Fiend and Kozilek's Return and just gets to sit around. This is a really dangerous place for Bant Company.
We could see Skarren just go for it on his turn to make sure that that Jace does not flip into a Planeswalker. I imagine that we will be seeing that.
Yeah, if he does it on Tumavitch's upkeep, Tumavitch will then tap the Jace, turn into a Planeswalker, and it'll survive. Not interested in that too much.
That's not the line.
You see Frank's hand, Elder Deep Fiend, Yavimaya Coast, Prized Amalgam. So Jace, this is his backup Jace. He lost his Planeswalker last turn, but he had the O2 sitting around. So time for this one to become a telepath.
Well, it could very well just activate it, cast Deep Fiend with the trigger on the stack because he wants that creature to be able to emerge.
All right, and that's what's going to happen. Jace will tap with the trigger on. He will emerge. Gets his Kozilek's Return. He's really hoping there's not another Summary Dismissal in Matt's hand.
Did you do it?
He would probably just lose the game to that. 1, 2, 3. Oh, goodness. Is it? Does he have it? It's double blue. He's going for 4 mana.
He's bluffing.
He doesn't know he doesn't. That's a big sigh. He's floating mana from the lands that Frank was tapping. That's fine. Now the Deep Fiend hits the board. This was main phase. Tumavitch will get a chance to rebuild. It's unclear if Frank has anything going on outside of this 5/6. But he did just, get all of Matt's creatures.
This is a phenomenal start. He's ahead 5/6 to 5 lands currently.
But don't underestimate Bant's ability to just fill up the board with creatures really quickly.
Company off the top would have been substantial.
Sylvan Advocate, Reflector Mage, bouncing Deep Fiend, passes the turn. Just, sure, have your 5/6 back. That's fine.
Skarren's at 6 lands. He's just getting close to just casting that Deep Fiend.
Yeah, it is 8 colorless. Now, he doesn't play something like Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, so he can't just make it this turn. But you're right. When he hits 8, he can just hard cast it. And that by itself, even without Kozilek's Return, is actually a challenge for the Bant deck.
Right.
So we're on Skarren's side. He's got a Prized Amalgam in hand, a Deep Fiend, which he cannot cast until Tumavitch's next turn.
Or otherwise, without presenting something to sacrifice.
So looks like the 3/3 Prized Amalgam. Not pretty, but it's going to work here.
Smaller than the Advocate, which is now a 4/5, though larger than Reflector Mage.
He'll play a land. Now, keep in mind, he's got double blue and that Amalgam, and now, because of how Reflector Mage works, Frank can cast Deep Fiend immediately, and it looks like that's just what he's going to do.
And he can be fairly confident that Tumavitch does not have a Collected Company in hand, given the way that the last turn cycle is played, so he can put him out of range to cast that, should it be the top deck, by tapping some lands here.
He's bought himself a turn, but Frank does not have a way to turn the corner yet. Yeah, taps Matt off of all the green mana. And there was another Kozilek's Return in Frank's yard.
Hey, that's also not bad.
Well, that's great.
Makes you wonder if Tumavitch was supposed to be Reflector Maging the Deep Fiend.
I didn't see, I wasn't aware of the second return. That's, Tumavitch now with 3 lands in hand. He takes 5 off the Deep Fiend. This actually is the game plan for Frank. Puts Tumavitch down to 13. I suppose when all you have is a Reflector Mage and an Advocate, not bouncing the Deep Fiend isn't really good either.
Yeah, your Advocate's going to be outclassed by it. This way, you're opening yourself up to top deck and Collected Company, getting back from this position.
Right.
Though, for now, he's got a lot of lands in hand.
Plays a Sylvan Advocate, passes. If he can find a Duskwatch Recruiter, it'll be great, and it's why he's still playing these land drops. But
right.
You're right, without it, this 5/6 is bigger than 4/5. It's just not that complicated. He's got the smaller creature, and he's behind on life points.
And this 4 position is scary from some top decks that Skarren can have here. He's already got a graveyard with a couple Prized Amalgams, so finding some way to get a Haunted Dead into his graveyard.
There we have it. Duskwatch Recruiter is the draw from Tumavitch. That's huge. going to for sure play it.
I like one main phase activation here. Possibly find something you want to cast right now, or at least get that extra information. Likely that you just want to sit back for a second activation, but
Advocate swings, puts Frank to 14. You were right, though, about top decks. When Frank has 8 mana, these Deep Fiends, just all his Eldrazi's, his Mindbenders, his Deep Fiends, they're just live.
Yep. All the Eldrazi, something to get these amalgams back.
Selfless Spirit was found off of the Duskwatch Recruiter. Now, you overhear the judge calling time for the main event. Now, keep in mind that this clock on the battlefield is correct for these players.
Got a little time extension at the feature match. Comes with some elbow room. It's a good table to be sitting at.
Back to Frank Skarren. He needs to find just another Eldrazi, some sort of cantrip. If this Duskwatch Recruiter doesn't die this turn, Matt's going to turn this game around in a hurry.
Yes. Was Skarren unable to find a Haunted Dead or get one into his graveyard, those amalgams are not really doing anything for him.
Well, indestructible. Psh, Frank doesn't care about that. Here's a Languish. Tumavitch sacks a Selfless Spirit in response, so his Advocate's now an indestructible 0-1. But it'll be a great blocker. Prized Amalgam cast for Frank, and now we're back to Tumavitch. He's top decking again.
And that was just yet another different type of card that Skarren could top deck.
Oh my goodness. And how's this? Duskwatch Recruiter again from Tumavitch. He is just playing on borrowed time here.
Love the back and forth.
On the third card hits Archangel Avacyn.
All right. We got a game.
Well, he's going to have to do some blocking, right? He can't cast Avacyn this turn. He's at 8. Skarren has 8 power.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll just pass.
I can't just run that Advocate into the Deep Fiend here.
He is hanging on. There's a lot of things Frank can do. He can top deck a Traverse. He can just Traverse for Elder Deep Fiend and win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has to have it.
A Gather the Pack would be pretty significant here to try to find a Haunted Dead.
Sure. Here's Gather the Pack. If he finds a Haunted Dead, a Deep Fiend would be great. So he gets 2 creatures here. We see Stitchwing Scob.
That'll do.
And Prized Amalgam.
I assume we will see him choose to put 0 creatures in his hand. Maybe he can take the Amalgam and discard it to the Scab.
Looks like he's going to put them both in his hand.
Okay.
So you were saying you wanted one in the graveyard.
And then you can just discard, activate the Scab, discard the Amalgam, put that all back. Maybe he just wants to hardcast these creatures.
Yeah, it gets him into play faster to do it that way. But if he can't just play them all. Then they'll be untapped as blockers. He knows about the Avacyn, and that's got to be scary.
Right.
Obviously, I think ideally Frank was hoping to find an Elder Deep Fiend. But he can swing the 5-power creature. But without the Amalgam, Tumavitch does not have to block here.
So we'll wait to see how Skarren's play actually goes this way. But he already has 2 Amalgams in the graveyard, I believe. That third one would be the pickup. The Scab could bring all of that back. Assuming Tumavitch cannot manually make his Avacyn happen, that sounds lethal to me.
Tumavitch recruits with his Duskwatch, does not find anything. Then, rather than going to 3, he double blocks the Deep Fiend. Frank takes care of the Duskwatch Recruiter. I like that Matt spun the Recruiter before choosing whether or not to block. Now, that block, it looks like it was pretty close, right? He's going to Frank plays Stitchwing Scob.
That Recruiter had significant value on the table.
Oh my goodness. Matt, his draw for the turn.
One thing about having the Scob on the table, it can block or get into combat with the Avacyn. It can still make the Amalgams return that way.
See, he's looking through Frank's graveyard, saying, do you have a Haunted Dead? He'll just pass the turn. Frank, go back over to him. He's at 13, Matt at 8. Now that clock is correct. There is a minute 10 remaining in the game. Avacyn in Matt's hand. He's got 2 lands to go with it. Frank just hard casting his draft uncommons. Here's Haunted Dead, makes a Spirit. Pass. Here's Avacyn end step from Tumavitch. Draws a big one. This is Summary Dismissal.
That's going to be really good in the face of these potential graveyard shenanigans coming up.
Tumavitch swings the Vigilance creatures. Here's the 4/5s. He doesn't swing the Avacyn because Frank actually has enough power to kill it.
Right, with the Spirit plus the Scab, he has 4 power and flying creatures.
But Frank chumps with Haunted Dead, takes 4, goes to 9.
And Frank only has 2 cards in hand.
So does he want to discard them both? I think one of them is Prized Amalgam.
He can activate the Haunted Dead, but after this dismissal, he'll have to wait a little bit to activate again.
So this is during main phase. He's discarding Prized Amalgam and... Right. And Prized Amalgam and Yavimaya. We're in turn. So right now we are on turn 0. This is Matt's turn. Now, it depends when he wants to summary dismissal here.
Right.
So you probably do it immediately to the Haunted Dead trigger. It would exile it, then the Amalgam wouldn't trigger.
Right. You want to get all this stuff off the stack. If you wait until the Haunted Dead's on the table, you stop the Amalgams from returning, but you lose a little bit of value.
So he's going to summary dismissal the Amalgam trigger. This is one of those things where I don't believe this is... So what will happen is the Amalgam will remain in the graveyard.
Right. Just the trigger is removed. You counter the ability if the creature just hangs out in the graveyard.
Right. So this is not... This could have been done better, right? But this is a really complex rules interaction.
He couldn't have exiled the Haunted Dead. He could stop it from returning. You just counter the ability, and then nothing comes back. The way
because
that he
nothing
played
ever
it,
came out of the graveyard.
Exactly. The way that he played it, the Haunted Dead came back, and he stopped the Amalgamus, but he could have just stopped all of this stuff from happening.
We go to Skarren, turn number 1. Now he's going to have to win inside of turns. Remember that. So Frank 3 turns, Tumavitch 2. Is that a traverse? If that's a traverse, Frank's not... This is going to be...
Won't take
lights.
very long.
No, that's going to...
I will reveal my Elder Deep Fiend.
Here's Traverse the Ulfin Vault. So we talked about how Matt maybe have a misstep there, but if Frank draws Traverse, that's just not going to matter.
Yep. He didn't have an avenue to get lethal that turn anyway.
Here's Elder Deep Fiend. 7 lands in play. So Frank, if he wants to emerge it, he'll have to sacrifice a Spirit token.
Skarren just asking,
Darn.
You got the 3rd dismissal? Because I got this monster.
Here's 7 mana. We'll see what Frank wants to emerge. Yeah, Spirit token. So now he has to pay 5 double blue. Out comes Elder Deep Fiend. 3. There is 9 power on Frank's board. So he'll tap all of Tumavitch's blockers and one of the lands. And he's gonna go for the win. If he does it, it's good.
From Frank's position, Tumavitch has done nothing with so much of his resources so long. He knows the coast should be clear for this attack.
There's the swing. It's exactly 8 damage. He leaves back the Spirit token. Forces Tumavitch to have something. I don't think he does. That last card, and he doesn't. Extends the hand, and it's Frank Skarren with Sultai emerge. In turns, taking the match.
This deck's sweet.
It's real, yeah. It's just such power in this deck. You know, you see him treading water with cards like Prized Amalgam, Haunted Dead, and then, he draws this 1 mana card that just closes the game.
Yeah, a lot of card selection with the Grapple, the Gather the Pack, the Traverse the Ulvenwald, and then just raw power once you get all the pieces together.